morning and welcome to Small Business Live. Today we're going to be going live with Michelle Potthurst from Meliora L&D, and I'm just going to add her in, but welcome to everybody. I'm so pleased to have you here. So I'm just going to add Michelle in and then we can take it from there. She's standing by ready. So Michelle is in now. There we go. Michelle, I'm looking at your pretty calligraphy there.
Oh, crumbs, right. And let me just flip my camera around. Hold on a second.
Hi, Michelle.
Is that better?
Much better.
Yay!
Calligraphy is lovely, but we prefer to see your face.
Well, I am looking at the back of my camera now, so I'm not going to fiddle around with it too much.
Okay, well, you're perfectly on screen, so don't worry about that.
Amazing.
So I just wanted to introduce Michelle. I've known Michelle for, must be coming up for 15 years ish now. We worked together in L&D for quite a while, and then we've known each other outside of that as well. But Michelle is a cheese-loving calligra-geek, which is a word she made up for her to describe herself. But also she is a very, very capable and talented learning and development professional. So I'm going to let her carry that on and tell us a bit about yourself, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much for that. Yes, I am a cheese-loving calligra-geek. Calligraphy is one of my sort of side hobbies when I'm not busy doing learning and development. But I've worked in education and development for over 15 years. I started out as a further education lecturer, so I taught 16 to 19-year-olds for 5 years, and that was in a further education college in Hounslow in West London. And then for various reasons, both personal and professional, I made the switch into the corporate world. And that's obviously where I first met Vicky, and I worked as a training coordinator and supporting a regulatory change project. And even though I'd never worked in corporate before, I could still sort of transfer over my knowledge that I had from education, where I'd completed a postgraduate degree in further education. So there were still things that I could apply. I still had an idea of what a good sort of training session would look like, how it's important to engage people as well. And I remember the induction session that I attended when I was at the project at HSBC, and it was good, but I thought, oh God, there are ways that it could be improved. So that, again, that was showing how I could transfer those skills over. And then after HSBC, I worked for RBS as well, again, with Vicky. You're probably detecting a theme coming here. And then after that, I moved into property and worked for Knight Frank for a couple of years, which was really, really interesting. And then moved into a learning and development role with an IT distribution company, which was very, very eye-opening. And my final employed role was working in the charity sector. So I worked for a large charity called Plan International, who do work around the world to support the rights of women and girls. And like many people, I call myself sort of maybe the class of the pandemic, because I used the lockdown time to sort of stop and really think about what I wanted to do, and whether working in employment was really what I wanted to do. Now, after a little bit of a time out to sort of look after myself and refocus, I started doing some freelance projects and supporting small businesses with their training needs. And it was a good friend of mine, actually, who works as an HR consultant, who planted the seed for my current business. And that is where I am today.
That's great. That's a really integrated version of your experience. So understanding now you work with HR consultants doing L&D for small businesses. So for businesses who are listening, who maybe don't understand what that means for them, could you explain more about what you do and how you work to get them training through your HR consultants?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, I started off my business as wanting to work directly with small businesses, but there are a lot of us training consultants out there, and there are various challenges that I came up against in terms of that positioning for my business. One of them was being far too broad, and trying and being too much of a generalist when actually I probably needed to be far more specialist. And then the other element of it, which again I discovered from my friend who is an HR consultant, she works, has her own business, is that quite often small businesses don't necessarily see the distinction between HR and learning and development. It's quite a clear distinction in bigger businesses where you have HR who are looking after sort of the people, policy, process, and then you have your learning and development team who are what I would consider doing the how, giving people the skills and the knowledge and the insight to do things and creating a effective learning environment. But in the small business world, that distinction isn't always there. So the HR person becomes the go-to person for everything. So not only are they at the very extreme end, you know, trying to keep people out of tribunals and managing ER issues and things like that, and at the positive end, they are doing really great stuff around processes and policies and helping businesses to grow. But that doesn't automatically mean that they are experts in training and how people learn and how best to communicate people to support them to learn. So I repositioned my business to become essentially a partner to HR consultants. So if they are struggling in terms of learning and development for their clients, if they don't have time to do those certain projects, if they are lacking in sort of expertise and ideas in how to deliver those projects and what good training looks like. If they just want to talk to me to get some sort of ideas down, if they want me to design something for them, that's what I do. So I'm trying to create that partnership between learning and development and HR that you would often see in bigger organisations in the corporate world, and then trying to recreate that same partnership in the small business world.
That's really good. Really good. It's very much needed. I've spoken to a few HR consultants who've said that they, you know, they don't really enjoy the L&D side of things, and you know, they're not that great at PowerPoint. So I know that's going to trigger you. But we like to say, what is it we like to say about PowerPoints, Michelle?
Oh, good. Well, trainings are not PowerPoints, and if you want me to do PowerPoints, I just smile and wave at you. That is one key thing. If any message that I give to people, PowerPoints come last, right? They are a visual tool. They are a prompt for the facilitator. They are a way of representing information to participants. If you're designing training, if you take nothing else away from this today, do not start with PowerPoints. PowerPoints come last. And I will get off my soapbox on that one now.
So what is one thing that you wish you knew before you started your own business?
I wish I knew how difficult it would be to get people to connect with you. And I think it's something we've talked about it before. I think we often naively have this sense that build it and they will come, because look at me, I can help you in so many ways. And that doesn't happen. Obviously, it's much harder than I think you anticipate to get people to sort of talk to you, to sort of interact with what you're doing. So I think a bit more priming in terms of how hard that would have been quite useful.
Okay, so priming and then maybe a bit of networking before, or yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I've definitely had to build my networking muscle, definitely in the past year. And as a natural introvert, that can be quite challenging, but it's definitely something that I have got better at. And it's something that I actively pursue and plan into my monthly activities.
So as a natural introvert, for other introverts, what tip could you give to them, to other introverts to start networking? Because it's not easy. I know it can be very difficult for people to go out and talk to a bunch of strangers. So
one of the things that I do a lot is listen. I listen to what's being said, and find an opportunity to try and make a connection with something that's being said. So I would very rarely go into a networking space and, be straightway outwardly introducing myself. I'm a little bit more reserved, and I tend to observe and see what's going on. And definitely listening has been really key for me, because one of the things that I have found is that people do like to talk about themselves, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean that in generally people like to share their stories and people like to talk about their experiences. So I tend to listen a lot and pick up on certain things, and if I find something that I can make a connection with, then I will sort of present my opinion or my idea that way. So I found that listening is quite helpful, and not feeling that you have to be so out there presenting yourself all the time. And I think, again, it's definitely a practice thing. Maybe trying a small local event before going to something bigger would be quite helpful. But I think those would be my top things. Listen, find the connection, find where you can add value in terms of sort of your comment or an insight, and keep going and keep practicing. Everyone feels it. We all feel sometimes the challenge of networking, but it's a great thing to do. And as someone who works on their own in my little office here in Reading, it's just good for the soul to get out as well and speak to people.
Yeah, I agree with that, particularly as it gets dark at 4 o'clock now. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about your other business. So it's backwards, obviously, because of my camera, but some lovely calligraphy there from Michelle. So because it's backwards, it says focus, intention, and clarity. But it's, yes. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, again, calligraphy was something that I discovered during the pandemic. When I'd left my previous job, I wasn't sort of particularly well. I was struggling a lot with my mental health, and I had, at that point, my esteem was really low, and I was even questioning whether I could carry on doing learning and development. So it was just by chance I was looking on Facebook and I found an online calligraphy workshop, and I thought, why not? Let's just give it a try. I'd always liked art and design when I was younger, and I didn't pursue it as I got older. Got all sensible and got a job and things like that. But the calligraphy just kind of ignited something in me again, and I describe it as structured creativity. So calligraphy has rules, and I'm a great one for rules and process. But within calligraphy, once you understand those rules, you can break them, and you can be more expressive in what you do. So what I really like about it is that it has that structure, but it also has freedom around it as well. It's also an incredibly mindful activity, because you really have to concentrate on what you're doing. The amount of times I've been doing a piece and my mind has wandered off and I've just spelt a word incorrectly, or I've dumped ink all over the place. So you really have to focus on it. So from a mental health perspective, it's really good. And it also helped me to rebuild my esteem and to rebuild my self-confidence, because I proved that I could learn something new. And I know that might sound a bit daft. We're always learning new things, but it just something I struggled with, a lot of sort of perfectionism and things like that. So calligraphy showed me that I could learn new things and I could make progress, and just by embracing the process and embracing being a learner, it helped me in so many ways. And I still have a lot of my old calligraphy up in my office to show that progress. Those pieces that I thought, look at this is amazing, and I'd only been doing it for a few months, and now to see the difference in it now, it is just a total journey, and it's really important to have those reminders of the start of that journey, but also how far you've come as well.
Yeah, I love it. I've got loads of them that show your different loads of pieces, but that show your progress through it, and it's was very exciting to watch it progress from a hobby to a business to something that you mastered and you were beginning to teach other people to do. So that was very, very exciting, and it's really nice that to have a hobby that can really do such good things for your mental health, because some of my hobbies are not great for my mental health, including watching sport.
Especially not if you are watching South Africa in the latter stages of the Rugby World Cup. That was definitely not good for your stress levels.
No, not at all. Yeah. They're calmed now, but yeah. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is, well, it doesn't have to be one, but your main piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's looking to start their own business?
I would definitely say embrace the niche. As soon as you can, start thinking about who, specifically focusing on who you want to work with, because it just makes everything else so much easier. When I first started, as I mentioned, I started out trying to be everything to everyone, and as a result, I was nothing to everyone. It was a really diluted message, and I didn't really have clarity in what I was talking about and how I was communicating things. And I think the reluctance to niche comes from a place of fear, because you are concerned that you are going to lose out on loads of business and opportunities. But not niching means that, you know, as I've mentioned, your messaging is quite diluted. You're not having laser focused clarity on who it is you're speaking to, and also, you know, what it is that you do and the kind of work that you would take on and the kind of things that you wouldn't do. So I ummed and ahed about niching for ages, and it just got to a stage where what I was doing wasn't working. So I had to make that shift. And again, it was encouragement from my HR consultant friend. It was speaking to other HR consultants as well, to get that sort of validation that there was a need for what I wanted to do. Now, by niching, that doesn't mean that I am not open to working directly with a small business. So if I met a small business at an event or online or wherever that may be, I would still be able to work with them. It's just that my primary messaging is to reach out to the HR consultancy world. So I'm not excluding myself from other work. I'm just being very clear and intentional about who I am speaking to and the kinds of information that I am sharing. And it has given me a lot more clarity in what I do. And it just felt like a bit of a cloud was lifted in terms of my work. So I would definitely recommend that. I know that it's probably something a lot of people say, and we all go through this rather painful journey of not wanting to do it. But if you can, as soon as possible, I would definitely recommend focusing on your niche.
So people, people who have a small business but don't necessarily have an HR person who need training can still come and use your service.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that often in small businesses there are standalone HR managers, or even people who work in operations and they do everything. So they might do payroll, they might do contracts, they may outsource particular things to HR consultants, and those people are just the go-to people for anything people related. So that is absolutely a space where I can provide support as well.
That's great. And how do people get hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Michelle Potthurst. LinkedIn is my preferred sort of platform, but I also do things on Instagram as well. So my handle is a little bit of a mouthful. I am Meliora L_N_D. So those are the main places you can find me, or on my website, which is www.melioralearninganddevelopment.co.uk. And just as a point of interest, it's a very long name, but Meliora is a Latin word, and it means for the pursuit of better. And I just thought that really summed up what I try and do in my training. It's, you know, to help people and businesses be better.
Great message, and I will obviously put that into the captions, or whatever it's called, below, the description below. Link people to you so that they can come and check you out and have a conversation with you. Do you have a lead magnet or anything that you'd like to share with people? Or
I do. I think there's a common myth that anything that involves any kind of people development has to be like a formal instructor-led training session. And it doesn't have to be that way. There are lots of things that organisations can do that are quite informal in order to help create a culture of learning and development in their organisation. So I do have a lead magnet that has 30 ideas for free or low-cost things that businesses can do to support the skills and knowledge development of people within their organisations.
Fantastic. And I will put that link in the description too. Right. Thank you very much, Michelle. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go? Or or you?
No, not at all. Just to say sort of thank you for inviting me to come and sort of speak to you and to share my insights with your audience today. And if there's anything that anyone has resonated with and anything that I've said, not just on a sort of a professional business level, but on any other kind of level, then I'm always happy to reach out to people or have people reach out to me and to have a chat.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.